Hello, everyone. Welcome to the program. This is Sunday Politics live on Channels Television. I am Sean Wakimbaloye in Abuja. Happy Easter to everyone, wherever you may be watching. Thank you so much for tuning in. Tonight, we are in for some very critical conversations. But before we begin, I'm troubled and I'm worried about a particular matter. And the media is supposed to set an agenda, and tonight, that's where we begin from. I think there's some trouble brewing. If you are very much aware, in the later part of Obasanjo government and in the early days of the Yaradua government tried as much as possible to quench that trouble. It looks to me that it's one trouble that is rearing its head again. I'd like to remind everyone. First, I'll play two videos of ex-agitators and those who have become a strong voice within the youthful population in the Niger Delta region of the country. This first one is that of government Tompolo. And some of the narratives and rhetorics that are coming from the Niger Delta are disturbing. Take a listen to government Tompolo. That's Tompolo on one hand, and Ijoman. Right. Now, let me play another one for you. This is Chief Ayiri Emami. Take a listen to him.
Everything they have done in the name of warring federal causes of self-determination is very badly and different government has glorified and made nonsense of all that. And what I would give us away, I would say, my years don't show where I'm one. If there is law in this country, you have to participate on this boundary adjustment. Either one. What I know here is that if there is law in this country, if there is law and order, all those as led by Tinubu who participated in this fraudulent document should be arrested.
All right, so for context, these are two men who are on opposing side who have led agitations in the Niger Delta. There are lots of people call them ex-militants. So you understand that when they're speaking, Ayiri Emami, Olugbojere of Warri Land, and a Shekiri man, and government Tompolo, and Ijo man, and this conversation, and he's getting heated by the day. So on our Lest We Forget segment, before we begin this conversation tonight. Lest we forget, a crisis building in the shadows of oil wealth. Lest we forget, the Niger Delta is not just a geographic zone. It is the heartbeat of Nigeria's economy, generating about 90% of our foreign exchange and 78% or thereabout of government revenue through oil and gas. Yet again, from Warri area, a familiar danger flicker. The recent INEC delineation report, which has triggered deadly ethnic tension between the Ijos and the Shekiris, is no longer a trivial matter and one that anybody should take lightly. One person we understand has been killed, houses have been burned, and oil facility reportedly been shot. These are not random acts of violence. They are symptoms of a deeper festering grievance stoked by what many perceive as an unfair and possibly prejudicial delineation process. Whatever you may be side you are listening to, but one thing that is important is that it's not sitting down well with some people. Lest we forget, this is not the first time conflict in this region has disrupted our economy. Between 2006 and 2009, oil production crashed from over 2 million barrels per day to just about less than 1 million barrels per day due to militant agitations. Tinubu's fiscal framework is predicated on hitting a daily oil production target of over 1.78 million barrels. Any resurgence of violence in this corridor could sabotage that goal, derail revenue projections, and rattle investors' confidence. Lest we forget, when voices like Tom Polo and Ayiri Emami, longtime power brokers and antagonists from different sides, begin to raise an alarm, the federal government must now see the handwriting on the wall. But tonight, there are critical questions that I'm bringing to the table that demand urgent answers from authorities. So one of the questions is, was the National Boundary Commission's April 2024 gazetted document, which reportedly said to have been, by some of the grievances, said have omitted key insecurity communities such as the Ugborodo from the 500-meter deep sea buffer zone, duly considered in all of these scenarios? What about INEC before his delineation report? What did he consider? There is a Supreme Court judgment, yes, but what are the considerations about the ethnic, the voting population in the last election, and the population of the people who are the original owners of the land? Are these considerations being made to the traditional rulers and the original citizens of that place? What has become of the findings of the Joint Field Verification Team on omitted host communities? Some of these I've read anyways. Are we witnesses an institutional oversight or a politically convenient blindness? Lest we forget, the ethnic character of land disputes in oil-producing areas is historically volatile, and the line between agitation and armed resistance is often very thin. INEC and the Boundary Commission must be called to account, and questions critical to this conversation must be raised, and President Tinubu must initiate a high-level multi-party intervention that combines transparency, ethnic reconciliation, and legal due diligence. Lest we forget, delay is not neutrality, it is complicity. The Niger Delta is simmering again, and if Abuja does not act now, history could repeat itself. We're already facing enough trouble within the northeast, the north-central region of the country. Only this time, if all of this history repeats itself, the cost could be even more catastrophic. Lest we forget, we are the media. We're just speaking the mind and the conscience of the people of this country and those that are in power. Act now before it's too late. In the past 2 weeks, Nigeria has witnessed a disturbing escalation of violence across the north central and middle belt, if you may call it, particularly in Plateau and Benue State. In Plateau State, over 50 individuals were killed in coordinated attacks in communities such as Zike in Baza local government area, with the Irugwe ethnic group bearing the brunt of the violence. Similarly, in Benue State, Governor Alia has reported that 56 bodies remain recovered following assault on Ukum and Logo local government areas. These attacks, attributed to suspected unarmed herders, who have not only resulted in significant loss of life, but have also displaced numerous residents and threatened the region's agricultural productivity. This is supposed to be the heartbeat of farming and agro production in this nation, and is troubled by this kind of insecurity. Despite President Bola Tinubu's condemnation and directives for thorough investigation, the frequency and severity of these incidents raise pressing questions about the effectiveness of current security measures and the underlying causes of such conflicts in our nation. Well, there's one man that has spoken, and he said that Nigerians should be ready to defend themselves. Maybe that is where we begin the conversation. Let me allow you to listen to Retired General T.Y. Danjuma.
I know we have a lot of problems, including security. As recently as 2 or 3 days ago, we've experienced kidnapping near Kashimbila, and the threat of kidnapping will continue until we, one of us, rise up and defend ourselves. It is quite clear the government alone cannot do it. I have warned very long time ago in a speech in Ukari that our people must be prepared to defend themselves. Warning is as valid today as it was when I made it.
Amidst all of these security conversations and some of these very categorical conversations or commentaries on the security situation is also the threat on the political scene as to whether or not the present political structure and government of the day can withstand the political opposition and the coalition that we're seeing brewing. So tonight, I have two gentlemen. Well, one elder statesman and one man that looks more a bit younger than the other. I'm from Minister of Communications. Adebayo Shitu is live for us here in our studio. And from London is my very good friend, Bulama Bukati, is a security expert. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us tonight. Let me deal with the security situation. It does look to me a bit more troubling. Mr. Shitu, just give me a moment. Let me speak with Mr. Bukati. Where do we begin? You heard what General Danjuma said. Is that a good way to start? General Danjuma, by the way, is from Taraba State. And so his own people, too, have felt the brunt of attacks, numerous of them, in that region. So you see that the Northwest region embattled. The Northeast region, especially your home state of Borno, is now seeing some kind of resurgence of this insurgency. And the governor has been speaking about it. We've seen what is happening in Plateau and Benue State. Is self-defense the best way to start from?
I want to start with, there is indeed a troubling escalation in violence and terrorism and criminality across Nigeria. As you said in your introduction, the Boko Haram crisis is still raging on. And unfortunately, over the past 3 to 4 months, we have seen a resurgence of Boko Haram attacks, especially in Borno State, where we saw 397 different attacks in the first 3 months of this year, just in Borno State, in which over 500 people were killed. Actually, 514 people were killed and around 350 were abducted. In the Northwest, the crisis, the bandits terrorism is also raging on. Bandits are continuing to launch attacks on rural communities, in particular in Katsina, in Zamfara, in Kebbi, in Sokoto State. The Lakurawa also continue to launch attacks in Sokoto and in Kebbi State. In the North Central, as you said, we are seeing escalation in violence in Plateau State and Benue State now, but also in parts of Niger State, in Nasarawa State, where we know that there are Boko Haram cells, including ISWAP. And also in Kwara, recently there have been reports of attacks, especially in the border region between Kwara and Niger State. There is a troubling escalation. And Sheun, it appears to be that Nigeria has become a very fertile ground for terrorism, for criminality, and for violence. And with every passing week, we only see more and more troubles. The Boko Haram crisis was weakening, but now is resurging. Bandit terrorism is continuing. You have the secessionist crisis in the southeast, and then now you have Benue, you have Lakurawa, it's overwhelming. But to be honest, in spite of all of this, self-defense is the wrong place to start. It is the wrong call.
Why
Because
do you think it's wrong? If a retired general says it is time for us to now start defending ourselves, don't you think that he has enough field experience and knowledge and gallantry to be able to see what is right, especially because he's also a son of the soil of areas that have been embattled by these insurgents?
I respect you, Danjuma, and as you said, he is a retired military general, but he is not someone who keeps public order. And we are talking about public security and public order here. As a military general, most of his duties had to do with defending Nigeria's external borders or external crisis. But we are talking about a breakdown of law and order here. And Shewan, remember that the Abdusalami Abubakar Commission revealed a few years ago that there were around 7 million illegal light weapons and ammunitions in Nigeria. And now, if you have a call for self-defense by a military general, what that means is that there will be more arms in the hands of ordinary Nigerians. More people will buy weapons, they will buy arms, and more people will start to kill people without justice. And that is what has been happening in places like Plateau State, for example, over the past 20 or so years. What we saw was continued attacks by one community against another, and then counter-attack by the other, and then counter-attack by the other, and it continues for years. If you say, defend yourself, and people buy weapons, how are they going to be able to pin down who they suspect, and how are they going to make sure that that person is actually the suspect, and also give him all the doubts and defenses in law before they mete out justice? What they will do is just to go out on the street, accost anyone they see, kill him without justice, and that person's family and community tribe will see that and also pick up arms and kill the
So, Mr. Bukati, let's be up straight and clear in this conversation. I've had a series of conversations over the span of my career on security in this country. And sometimes it does sound to me like I'm asking the same question over the different governments that have run the affairs of this country, because it looks to me that the problem are just recurring, and it sounds like deja vu, because you'll be wondering, I discussed this about 16 years ago, 14 years ago, 13 years, 10 years ago, and they keep repeating themselves. But let's be straight with Nigerians tonight. Where are these people being for? Where is the funding of these guys coming from? Are these politically funded? Because people being killed, and where are these weapons? They say some of them are herders. They say some of them are this and that. Where do they have the capacity to buy this weaponry? And they are inflicting pain on innocent Nigerians every day. Can we just be straight with Nigerians? Let's know where the problems are. Who are those funding these terrorists?
You see, Sean, as you are frustrated, I am also frustrated. I have been researching this issue for the past 15 years or so, and I am sick and tired of discussing one issue time and time again, and the government doesn't seem to be acting. There was a statement made by a bandit terrorist leader in Zamfara State. He was later killed. He said it is easier to buy weapon in Nigeria than to buy bread. In other words, he said it is more difficult for me to get bread in Zamfara State and buy it than to buy weapon. It is easier for me to buy a gun than to buy bread in Zamfara State. And what he said is true. Small and light arms and ammunitions are everywhere in Nigeria. Our borders are so porous. When you talk about funding, there are many sources of funding for these terrorists and criminal groups. But the major source of funding over the past 5-10 years is ransom payment. For example, we were talking about Boko Haram's escalating attacks in Borno right now, and there are reports indicating or suggesting that Boko Haram would have received around 1 billion naira in ransom since 2024. So in 1 year, they have collected over 1 billion naira in ransom payment only. And they have a sophisticated system of taxation where every herder, every farmer, every trader in Borno State, every fisherman, every fish dealer would have to pay them taxes before they can operate. And I can break down that to you. And they issue receipts. They issue receipts to people who pay taxes before.
Is it in the present day Borno State? Because the decimation that we saw over the years of that sect and the allied and associate sect of the Boko Haram element and its structure, we thought that they have been highly decimated, that they don't have the capacity to be able to run. There was a time that they ran about 18 or so local government in this country, in the northeastern region of the country. Do they still have the capacity to hold structure and have a sort of administration of their own on Nigerian soil?
Definitely, Sean. As we speak today, Boko Haram has courts, they have markets, they have places they control inside Nigeria. And I will mention local governments in Borno State. Go to local governments like Gamborungala, like Goza, like Dambua, like Abadam. These are local governments that, as we speak today, even the the civil authorities in those local governments either operate inside the headquarters of the local government or inside Maiduguri, which is the Borno state capital. They cannot go to their own constituencies because Boko Haram is in control in those constituencies. For example, Gamborungala today is the headquarters local government is occupied by people, by civilians, but you cannot travel 2 kilometers outside the local government without meeting Boko Haram members. And when you go to the northwest, the major source of funding in the northwest is ransom payment. Billions of naira have been paid in ransom over the past 2-3 years in the northwest. And the more money these people gather, the more sophisticated they become, because they will buy more weapons, they will buy logistical equipment like cars, like motorcycles and others. And we know that in the North Central, the same thing is happening. Ransoms are being paid, people are being dislodged from their own homes, and their property stolen by these armed groups. And these armed groups, Sheun, are operating across rural Nigeria with impunity. In many places, they operate without being confronted by anyone, and they operate for days in a lot of those places. And until and unless we tackle the source of the money, the source of the weapons, we are just joking. There is no way we can tackle these groups without first blocking their supply routes, blocking their financing sources, and making sure that none of them get money. Unfortunately, criminality, terrorism is now becoming normalized in Nigeria. It's becoming an everyday thing, and we are ceding Nigeria's territory to many of these non-state armed operators in many parts of the country.
When we were having a pre-chat before this conversation, you were telling me now how sophisticated and how emboldening the audacity some of these terror cells are. In fact, some of them you say they have taken to social media using TikTok. What have you discovered?
Yes, Sheun, right now when you go on TikTok, you will see Boko Haram members' account. They are hosting live programs, live shows, where they propagate Boko Haram's ideology, they justify the group's violence, and they...
Did they do it in Hausa language?
In Hausa language, and they field questions from the audience, they answer comments that are written. Even this week, there was a Boko Haram member who posted a 10-minute video on TikTok attacking me for speaking up against the escalating violence of the group. But it's not just that, Sheun. We know that Boko Haram now operates unmanned drones. They surveil on military formations in the northeast with unmanned drones. And what we have seen over the past 3 months was over 7 Boko Haram attacks on super camps, on Nigerian military super camps. In Wulgo, they attacked Nigeria's military super camp, in Sabongeri, at Isge, in Goneri, and lots of other places. And in each of these places, they overran the camps, they dispersed the military, they killed some of them, they captured some of them, and they stole weapons from those areas and food and medicine and other equipment and left into the bush. So they are operating with impunity in several local governments in Borno State as we speak today. In some of them, even the local government chairmen are operating either inside the headquarters only, or they are operating inside the Borno State capital, Maiduguri. And the same thing is happening in parts of northern Yobe. And of course, you know what is happening in the northwest in terms of Lakurawa attacks, in terms of bandit terrorist attacks. And now we are talking about Kwara State, we are talking about Plateau State. Of course, the crisis in Plateau and Benue are slightly different from the ones we are talking about here, and we can get into it if you like.
Now, when this government came into power, and you can see Anur Badu, the NSA, receiving those who have been captured or kidnapped by these terrorist groups. And you will actually see that there was some kind of quiet. We were experiencing peace. And if you look at it, in the Jonathan government, in the Yar'Adua government, in the Buhari government, there is usually that initial peace. All of a sudden, violence will just escalate and things will just getting so bizarre and so getting so crazy. And I'm wondering, this is how politics starts. Because politics starts and gets a crescendo, it gradually moves on. Because they study what happens, and at the end of the day, they understand their terrain and they act. That's how the usual way a politician will act. It does look to me that there seems to be a trend. Would you say there is some kind of politicking or a political motives? Because it looks like the security agencies had a stronghold of our security architecture in the past month. Look at the last 2-3 months. Things started escalating. What understanding do you have about the trend?
I mean, Sheon, I completely agree with you that this issue always ebbs and flows. Sometimes you see a month of lull, a month of quiet, and then you see things escalating all of a sudden. But I will be very, very cautious to relate it directly with partisan politics, because that's what you see online. You see people peddling conspiracy theories. When Boko Haram started in the beginning, they said it was a project by the northern power brokers in order to hold power in the north or to destabilize a northern president. And then we saw Buhari coming into power, trying to weaken Boko Haram, but the bandit terrorist crisis started. And then we had different theories with people saying Buhari is not even Buhari himself. He was cloned. He is a body double and all that. And then we saw, the Tinubu administration coming into power. What I blame in all of these is shown lack of political will, because over all of these crises, what we have seen is emergency measures that are always short-term and they are always reactive. Government will deploy military or will declare state of emergency where there are big attacks with leading to public outrage. They will try to calm down the situation at that particular moment, but no one will look at addressing the root causes. No one will look at investigating and bringing perpetrators to justice. No one will look at rebuilding communities and rebuilding peace and reconciliation and healing the communities where those crises started. No one will look at, okay, who is responsible in the security architecture so that they may be brought to book. No one will look at, okay, how did these things get into our country? Because we don't produce weapons in Nigeria. We don't produce the drugs these guys are taking before they launch attacks. But no one in the medium and long term is looking at the root causes and factors that are leading to this.
So this is it. You heard your governor, Governor Zulum, who clearly stated at the meeting and said, look, there seems to be some redeployment of the weaponry that were being used to fight insurgency in Benue State to other areas because the military is just they're overstretched. And you look at what this government promised. It says that there will be more boots on the ground. There are those who say, yes, we need more boots. There are those who say we need to be more sophisticated. Sophistication in this kind of warfare is a lot of money. And now you're talking about the sophistry of these elements. Now, there are unmanned drones that are being flown to even spy on our military formations, and the fact that they are so audacious now, they've taken to TikTok. It's so interesting how they've turned. Where do we go from here? If you're talking to the government as someone who has done a lot of research, not only in Nigeria, but sub-Saharan Africa, and some of these problems are very similar and they have the same tendency, they are from the same fabric. How do we then start to resolving and fixing these insecurity issues once and for all, if possible?
Yeah, Shaun, even before the Borno State governor said what he said regarding the redeployment of military hardware from the northeast to the northwest, I received reports from Damatru, from Potiskum, and other places in Yobe State where they said they saw dozens of military hardware every week being moved from the northeast westward. And of course, they never return. And what that shows you is that the government has now made Boko Haram no longer a priority, and now they are making the bandit terrorists a priority. But it shouldn't be an either or. All of them are terrorists, whether in the northwest or in the northeast or in the north central, or the violence we are seeing in the southeast or or other places in Nigeria. What you need to do is a security architecture that can fight all of them at the same time, because that is our challenge as a country today. And part of why we are unable to do this as a country today is because the money voted for security, especially for hardware expenditure in the last administration, was stolen. This was an admission made by the National Security Advisor at the time, General Monguno, who said billions of naira voted into security by the Buhari administration had gone missing. Under the President Jonathan administration, we know the $2 billion that went missing around election time, which was meant for security. And no one has been investigated in either of these crises and brought to justice. I know that there are some prosecution going on with the $2.2 billion crisis, the Dasuki get, but no one has been brought to justice until today. Under the Buhari administration, no one has been brought to justice. And I can tell you, and I told you this in the past, Sheun, if we gave the bandits in the northwestern part of Nigeria or Boko Haram, if you give them one budget, 1 year's budget, Nigeria's budget, they will damage the whole of Nigeria. They will overrun the whole of Nigeria because they are using their own money. We are stealing our money. Our money is being stolen in the security procurement sector, and no one is investigating that and bringing perpetrators to justice.
All right.
So the way to start is, number one, to make sure that the money that is being budgeted is spent and is spent wisely. And so it is not just about allocation. Number one, you allocate. Number two, you make sure that the allocation is disbursed in the right way at the right time. Number three, you have to follow the money. Do proper oversight, whether by the National Assembly or by the Ministry of Justice or by the presidency itself, to make sure that the money is being spent correctly. Yeah. Number two, when we talk about these issues, Sean, we are not giving the importance it deserves to our borders. Unless and until we get our border security right, we are not going to get out of this crisis. And when we talk about security, we talk about the military, but we don't talk about the customs and immigration officers at Nigeria's borders who are under-resourced, many of whom are corrupt, and who do not have the equipment and the knowledge to secure our borders. You and I spoke about the 1,400-kilometer borders between Nigeria and Niger, where many of these weapons are coming through. And until and unless we properly police our borders, this is not going to go away. Of course, we need to invest in education, in the economy, in other sectors of the country, but this has to be medium term. The immediate goal should be stepping up our security, and we cannot do that without money and without following the money to make sure it is spent correctly.
Bulama Bukati is a lawyer and is a researcher. He used to be with the Tony Blair Foundation, and he's done an extensive work on terror and terror cells and their activities in not only Nigeria, in sub-Saharan Africa and some part of the world. Thank you so much, Mr. Bulama Bukati, for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Sean. Thank you for having me.
Let me turn my attention to Mr. Debayo Shitu. How overwhelming do you think this is?
Honestly, I feel really very sad. It's very sad. I think leadership, political leadership in Nigeria has failed over the years. I mean, that is what Bukati's, discussions, that is where it goes. We just have to sit back. And I want to particularly challenge the National Assembly. The National Assembly is set up in a democracy to oversee the activities of the executive. So if we have a National Assembly and things are still going wrong and nobody is talking, then there's a problem.
I mean, I'm talking about sophistication, and I'll bring your former office into this. We thought that we could have eyes on the ground to be able to monitor, see what is going on, be able to, clip, because America and the rest of the world who have military power also start from how you can digitally and remotely control or attack or
have knowledge of what is going on.
Yeah, but what happened to our capacity? We thought we had some satellite. Where were they?
Well, interestingly, even apart from the issue of insecurity, if we had a satellite system that is really working and in place and has capacity, it is enough for us to make much more money than we're even making from oil. Today, most government agencies do not patronize the Nigerian satellite communications, agency.
The
NICOMSAT. They rather patronize satellite companies from Europe, from Asia, and so on and so forth, because there's no trust that our one satellite agency, because in a country where you have just one satellite in the orbit, who would have confidence in patronizing you? Suppose the thing crash, all their data, all their information will be lost.
But we had two. One was lost in. We used to have two that the Chinese helped us.
We had one. It's all the Chinese. We had one. It collapsed, it crashed, and then we had another one. And I want to remember that while I was in office, I made an effort to acquire 2 more satellites. I went to China, negotiated with the company manufacturing the satellite. They agreed to do 2 extra satellites for us at the cost of $550 million. And I went to China Exim Bank, negotiated, they agreed to pay for these 2 satellites. But some people in government blocked it.
Who are these people?
Well, unfortunately, some power people in our government.
In the presidency or within the cabinet?
In the presidency and within the cabinet.
Who are these people?
Well, I think there's no point going into
our nation needs to, we need to call out people who are...
It was blocked. You see, it was blocked.
Well, maybe you did not, your proposals were not concrete, they were not watertight.
They were, but you know, the kind of government we were running, it was blocked.
Because, I mean, I understand that with this is actually very related to our own field here in the media, because the capacity of even the one satellite that we have, government is not even utilizing it. They don't, so because we do not even have...
itself is patronizing foreign satellite companies, unfortunately.
And we left the ones that we...
And we left it. It's unfortunate. So, I mean, and that is
and there are no policy to mandate government agencies to use our own satellites.
These issues we are discussing should be a wake-up call to the National Assembly.
The satellite that we have when you were in office, and I imagine that is still what we have
it's still there.
Yeah, does it have the capacity to give us eyes on the ground at any point in time?
But it has no... I mean, it's just like if you are a transport company and you are flying Lagos and Abuja, which sensible transporter will patronize you if you don't have an extra tire? I mean, that's just the analogy.
No, but for the basic security work, could he have done, or does it have the capacity to do it?
It would have done, but I have said it, no extra.
No backup.
No backup.
But without backup, you can still run.
Of course, yes.
Yeah, so I'm saying that, does he have the capacity to aid military operations?
Of course it has, if the military would trust in them.
So the problem is the trust.
There must be trust.
So we have a tool, but we don't use it.
No, we don't, unfortunately. And I am challenging the National Assembly, I'm challenging even NICOMSAT to speak up, get assistance to get properly equipped so that they can do their patriotic duty to Nigeria.
A lot of the trouble now, you are a staunch APC man.
Yes, I am.
You were in everywhere, going around preaching Bola Tinubu and the renewed hope agenda.
Yes.
You hear some of these stories about the situation of the country. Are you worried? Do you feel sometimes ashamed to even go out in the public and talk about the renewed hope agenda?
My thinking is that all that we need to do is to continue to remind the people in the executive that they have work to do. Nigerians have entrusted us with the opportunity to assist them. So if we have an executive and we have a legislature, we must remind them that they have a binding duty, a patriotic duty to do the needful. They should go out to do the extraordinary in order to keep Nigeria safe.
So you think that the government is not doing enough to convince Nigerians?
I rather want to encourage them to continue to work harder.
But not enough. I mean...
No, they must work harder. Perhaps... they have people in all offices, relevant offices. Those people should be invited to work much harder.
Let's take a breather, everyone. But when we return, there is, in fact, a very worrisome political situation in the country. I'm speaking with a very strong chieftain of the APC in Adebayo Oshitu. And the conversation is going to be around the Tinubu and the northern political pressure. Can the Tinubu and the APC, as it's presently constituted, withstand the heat coming from the political structure in northern Nigeria? We'll be right back after this break. Join us again. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. Our former Minister of Communication, Mr. Adebayo Oshitu, has been speaking with us on the program. Thank you so much, Mr. Oshitu, for your time tonight.
You're welcome.
What is these Agitation in the north against your party. And there were talks, you are of the CPC block of the APC. That some of you are planning to leave the APC. Are you one of those that are planning?
I can never leave APC.
You can never?
I can never. I'm a very loyal member of the party. I have not seen what would justify my leaving. That is one. Number two, when you talk of CPC, you are talking of a dead horse. The party has since, gone into oblivion. We had to dissolve CPC. AC had to dissolve. Other parties had to dissolve for us to become APC. So now it becomes convenient for some people, for whatever selfish and self-serving, reasons. They use the name, the glorious name of CPC. And all this, the laughable thing about it, they even say that some people cannot talk on behalf of CPC, as if CPC is exclusive to a...
Who are these people that are brewing the exit stories?
To the best of my knowledge, I know the former Attorney General of the Federation, is one of the leaders, and a few other people there.
They are aggrieved.
Well, for whatever reason, I don't see what the grievance is.
What are they saying? What did they say?
They are just saying that they won't go again with APC. I don't know what was their contribution when they were with APC. I mean, a lot of them spent, were in government for the past 8 years. I mean, what did they use those periods to do for the people of this country? And it is, to me, it is like, because they have become used to being in government, they think that any government which comes into office and does not bring them on board, that, government would have offended.
Their thinking is the run of play does not favor them.
Exactly. That's the only thing.
They are not being carried along. That is the feeling.
They think so, but there are many of us, even within, who are still loyal to, APC, who have not gotten what we actually wanted. But that is not enough for us to behave like prostitutes.
So you are still patient?
We will be patient.
And open.
Because, you see, what God does not give you, nobody can give you.
So, how would you then describe, well, of course, you know that former governor of Kaduna State, Nasir El-Rufai, is also...
You see, Nasir El-Rufai has a special case. In the entire spectrum, political spectrum of APC, he's the only one who I am convinced has a good case. Because I saw him as a leading figure in the pro-Tinubu,
agenda,
agitation for the presidency. He did very well, and he was promised some, particular position. When that did not come, I expected that government would still bring him on board one way or the other. So to just leave him to, go to blazes, as it were, I don't think we have done well enough in handling his case. But apart from him, I don't see any other person who has any justification.
So the Malamis of this world,
I don't see what is special about him, particularly in relation to his contribution to the success of APC.
He spent 8 years as an AG.
He was in AG, 8 years. With all the power that he, had, with all the perquisites of office, with the fact that he had, he was one of the core people who had a tab on the President Muhammad Buhari at that time. So if you have spent that much of time, 8 years, how many Nigerians do we have? We have more than 200 million Nigerians. How many people would have the opportunity of being in government for even a day?
Yeah, and perhaps you have seen the video making the rounds on social media about the exit of Mr. Baba Ahmed, who is a political advisor to the president in the vice president office. And some of the things that he has said, he's a very strong voice within the northern political circle. In fact, he spoke for the northern leaders. And he has come out to say that they will not go with, there are those, in fact, the feelers are that within the northern circle, they think that they are asking President Tinubu not to run for 2027. There are those who are thinking that the North will not go with the present APC.
Will they go with who? With which other APC will they go with? You want to ask?
You don't think that options are on the table?
Let me see. Baba Ahmed, number one, was never part of APC. by virtue of the fact that he was outspoken and he was never part of APC, and APC defeated his choice at that time for the presidency. So for one reason or the other, I believe some people within the presidency, encouraged that he be brought, to serve in the presidency, and he was brought. What has gone wrong to make him say that he's going to withdraw?
Look at some of the things that he said. Although the video that you're seeing making the rounds that is showing right there on the screen, it spoke in Hausa language. But part of what he said no politician will come now and tell the Arawa to stand for him again until he tells us what he's going to do for us. We have 8 years of Buhari. Now this government is counting, and we're still lamenting. There are those who are the northern elites who feel that for the people of the north, that this government has simply left the people behind and concentrated, and the allegations are that this government has been nepotistic in his appointment.
The records are there. And I know that a lot of northerners have very juicy appointments within the system. Perhaps what is worrying them is the fact that this government has tried to balance up with the dismal situation during the Buhari, administration. I think it is high time people...
is balancing nepotism with nepotism.
Not nepotism, balancing in a fair manner to ensure that people from all parts, including even the East where Tinubu was not voted for, that people have, opportunities to contribute. Nigeria belongs to all of us. It doesn't belong to one section. And it is high time people forgot the situation where they think that they must dictate, the situation. In any case, anybody who seeks for the presidency now, the law requires that apart from having a simple majority of even one vote, you must also have 1/3 of the votes in at least 2/3 of the state. I don't see Tinubu getting anything short of that in 2027.
You don't think that there's an imminent and a very strong threat on the capacity of APC to be able to retain power?
Maybe. Let them go back to PDP if they want. And I know that PDP and SDP will not be in the same,
If there is a strong coalition, you don't think that is?
Let us wait and see. I don't want to talk too much on these things. And because I have people I cherish in the north, I don't want to create enmity, in our ranks.
I mean, as a politician, do you think maybe your party or the president should cut more some interests that are aggrieved on the inside? There is some kind of implosion. There are people who are angry on the inside of the APC. And on the outside, there are people who are also upset about how this government is being run, that the government is not carrying a lot of people along.
Are you aware that there are more politicians joining APC now than there are people going out of APC? Check your record, check the news, all over this country.
So that is enough reason for this, the president and the APC
I am not saying
to become
president. There's no cause for alarm.
The wave, you think, the tide of the wave that we're seeing right now is not troubling?
It's not, as far as I'm concerned.
The Atiku and the possible coalition, does it not bring fear to you?
Atiku abandoning his PDP. Good luck to him if he were abandon his erstwhile party, the PDP, and go and, start, a new journey in another camp. Does it make sense for him? Already they are throwing it some bit bad. I mean, between him and others.
You're saying the visits to former President Buhari?
Well, to me, that does not make anything. It doesn't make anything. Because I know Buhari was my, boss, and I know the kind of person. There's nobody who goes to Buhari that would not come out smiling. That is the truth about Buhari. No matter, the antagonistic position of the different people who go to him, all of them will come out smiling. I mean, Buhari doesn't. Let me also tell you, Buhari had, engaged in presidential elections on 3 different occasions, with all the massive support he had in the north.
Before he became 4th time lucky.
He became 4th time lucky only because Tinubu supported him during that 4th time. And that is the truth. Whether anybody likes that or not. So if they want to go and do that, there are block votes, not only in the north. There are block votes all over this country.
On a final note, Mr. Shitu, the question that bothers my mind is the unity of this nation and the kind of work that needs to be done on the minds of the average person. Because, I mean, interestingly, I'm from the northern part of the country. And imagine the kind of message and the communications that are going around about this government, the APC, and the future, and how they think that they're being neglected. What kind of work do you think needs to be done by the political establishment?
I have acceded to the fact that there are a few instances, like that of El-Rufai. I didn't like the way we treated him. Because, you know, those who do well ought to be adequately, you know, compensated. He did very well. He was exceptional in his contributions. How many people played the same role as El-Rufai played in the north among those noise makers, you know, calling for, you know, abandonment of APC? How many people? And I have said it now. There are many more people, as some people try to exit. There are many more people coming.
So it's dangerous to have El-Rufai outside of the party?
No, I don't think it's fair. Even if it's not dangerous, it is not fair.
All right.
Yes.
Mr. Adebayo Shitu, a former communications minister, thank you so much indeed for your time. It's still a good time for you to pick some chicken for Easter. And wherever you may be watching, everyone, it's a celebratory and it's a festive mood that we're experiencing all over the world. Go find a good time and enjoy with family and friends. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Sean Okimari. I'll see you tomorrow, God willing. God bless Nigeria.